Pretty much. So thank you everybody for joining us today. We're going to be going over BIM 360 with our new workflow series. This is going to be the first session in that series. We're going to be going over the introduction into BIM 360 and the setup of it. A little bit of normal getting started parts though. For the duration of the webinar, everyone's going to be on mute. If you have any questions at all though, please feel free to drop them into either the chat window or the questions window. I'll be keeping an eye on that, and if there's a question that comes in during the presentation that I can fit into it, I'll take care of it then. If it doesn't quite fit in with what I'm covering at that moment, then I'll make sure I touch on it at the end. Now, if you're not familiar with Microdesk, we are an AECO technology consulting firm. We've been in business since 1994. We have 13 locations across the US. We also have our office in the UK as well. Our team consists of over 300 professionals, and on our technical team, we're up around 220, 225 now. And all of us actually have a background in the industry. So we don't just know the tools, we understand how those tools actually are really utilized and leveraged on the project. One of our focuses is really making sure we understand what the process actually is. We see where the current trends are going towards globalization, urbanization, and sustainability. And again, our team has experience with utilizing the tools to really achieve these goals, to make sure that designs are more sustainable, they're more efficient, and we're going to be working towards helping meet these needs. In terms of what we do, a little bit of everything from the very beginning of the project, from pre-design all the way through operations. So the kind of services that we have are staff augmentation, training, content, visualization services. We also have an asset management team, an internal development team. So we cover all bases for the entire AECO market. And as part of that, we have a lot of different partners that we work with, Autodesk being the largest, of course. We also work with IBM, Panzera, Bluebeam, Enscape, Unity, Unify, you name it. So we actually understand these tools, we utilize them internally, and we also work with our partners. Myself, I'll be the one doing a presentation today. My name is Peter Marchese. I'm the Senior Technology Evangelist at Microdesk. What that basically means is I do a lot of the testing of software and tools to find out if something is new, is it actually usable, or is it just something new? Do a lot of R&D, and my background is actually in architecture. I did that for about 10 years before I came to Microdesk. And I've been working with Revit since version 6.1. So I've been playing around with the tools for quite a while. Now, today's session is going to be going over the BIM 360 webinar series, step 1. So what that entails is we're going to be going over how to get started with BIM 360, give an explanation of what the different services are and what the licensing is, because that's one of the tripping points that a lot of people get hit with. We'll go over how to set up your hub, a little bit of how to manage it, and again, Q&A at the end. Now, before I get rolling with all that, I'd just like to ask the audience just a couple of quick questions. So let's see here. First one is going to be just asking what your role is. So are you a designer? Do you do PM work? Are you in construction? Oh. Yeah. All right. Perfect, thank you. And of everyone who's attending, how many people are actually using BIM 360 already? Awesome. Always love to see the used in the past, but not at the moment. BIM 360 is one of those tools that has changed quite a bit over the years. So there's a lot of new features if you haven't been using it for a while, and if the ones that you did use were the classic tools, there's a lot that's changed. Perfect. And outside of BIM 360, are you currently using any cloud tools or mobile tools? So prior to the social distancing and the stay at home, you know, how many people have actually been using tools to help them access content from the field or remote? Gotcha. Wow, split right down the middle. Awesome. Thank you very much for the information, everybody. I appreciate that. It helps me get an understanding of who I'm talking to make sure that my examples actually do fit. Cool. So with that, let's get rolling. So what we're doing right now is we've created a workflow series. Most of the presentations that we tend to do focus on a specific tool and just go through a bunch of the features of that tool, picks and clicks, if you were. So what we wanted to do is come up with something that was a little bit more workflow driven. So rather than trying to cover everything that you can do in BIM 360 in a single session or in just a single tool, what we wanted to do is go from early on design in the project all the way through the end. You know, one of the things that we say we help with. So what we're doing is we're starting with today for the BIM 360 setup. The next one that we do is going to be more on the project side. So you've got your hub, then you've got your projects. Then we also have the different services. So BIM 360 design, the model coordination aspect of it, the build platform. One of the questions I asked about going mobile, BIM 360 has mobile apps. There's more than one depending on what tools we're working with, and there's different ways that you can take advantage of it. And then also BIM 360 for operations. So we're going to be touching on each individual aspect as we go through this series to make sure that we're going a little bit more in depth and also focusing on specific things as opposed to trying to cover everything all in one fell swoop. Now, today's session again is going to be on BIM 360 setup. Perfect. Now, most everybody who is here has either used BIM 360 or has been using it for a little while. There were a bunch of people who weren't using it yet. So in terms of just a general overview, BIM 360 is Autodesk's cloud services platform. They also have another service, well, I shouldn't say service, they also have another platform that they refer to as the Autodesk Construction Cloud. That includes BIM 360. It also includes their purchase of Assemble, PlanGrid, Building Connect. But BIM 360 is sort of the primary one that can tie into the majority of their tools. So tools like Revit, Navisworks, InfraWorks, AutoCAD, Civil 3D. So it has the connections to there. It also works with the Forge APIs to add connectivity to a lot of other tools. Now, typically when we're talking about BIM 360, we're focusing on these four packages. So you got BIM 360 Docs. That's sort of, I don't want to say the starter package, but it's the base package. That includes the document management service. All the other packages, design, coordinate, and build, all includes document management as well. Now, outside of these four main packages, there's also BIM 360 Ops. That's the mobile tool or mobile and cloud service that can work for asset management as well as maintenance and repairs. So if I'm in a building and I have a problem with something, I can go to the app, actually say I need to open up a ticket, and that can actually create that ticket, send it to the service person, and it includes all the asset information. So that service person can see where in the building that problem is. They can actually pull up historical data and also maybe maintenance records or instruction manuals. Depends on what I'm looking for. But it's sort of a separate piece to the BIM 360 hub. But we're going to be talking about that one a little bit later on, definitely in the last one. Now, of the four main packages, though, for Docs, Design, Coordinate, and Build, these are also worldwide. You could use them anywhere in the world that you want. The hubs actually for this can be based either in the US or in the UK. So there's two main locations in terms of where your data is going to be stored. But when you're starting with BIM 360, the first question you typically have to ask is, what do I want to do with it? And that determines which of the packages you get. And are you looking just to share files back and forth, do markups, project reviews? Are you trying to work remotely with other people? So maybe you're looking at design, or if you're trying to put models together and look for clashes or issues. That would be coordinate. And if I'm looking to do project management where I need to track RFIs, submittals, meeting minutes, field information, that'll be build. Typically after we've worked with a client and made sure that we understand what their needs are and they're getting the right tools for that, the next thing is typically finding out, okay, well, how many seats do you need? And that's where a lot of the questions tend to come in with regards to licensing. The licensing for the main BIM 360 packages breaks up into two things. You've got the seats that the owner of the hub has to provide, and you have the seats where you're able to travel or bring your own license. So, easy way to explain this. So let's say we have 3 companies. We have company A, who's acting as a consultant. And they own BIM 360 Design, Coordinate, and Build. They work on a lot of projects, so they own those 3 services. They're going to be consulting on 2 different projects. One project is on company B's hub. Another project is on company C's hub. If company B invites them to work on their docs and build component of the project, they're going to use company B's licenses. Again, docs, coordinate, and build, the owner has to provide those seats to whoever they invite. Same thing for company C. Again, they're working for that company, they're using that company's licenses. Now, let's say company A starts working on another project for those 2 other companies, but that project is going to be using Revit, Plant 3D, Civil 3D, one of those tools. But what they're doing is they're actively working in BIM 360 Design. In those cases, when company A works on those other 2 hubs, they are able to use their own license. So this is usually the big question that comes up. I need to know how many seats do I have and how many am I going to need? So if I have 10 people that work in my company and I'm going to be hosting projects for, say, BIM 360 Coordinate, 10 is not what I need. I need however many I need for my own team, as well as the other people that I'll be inviting. What we tend to see is a lot of clients will then charge that to the project or charge the other people or just put it as part of a business cost for the project. But that is something to be considering in terms of how many seats do you need. Okay, no questions yet. Cool. Now, in order to get started with BIM 360, there's a couple of steps that you typically have to go through. The first one is getting access. Even if someone's purchasing it, we still ask our clients to set up a trial site. Now, the reason why we want this to happen is so that way, once you have that site up, if you're buying multiple packages, so I need 5 seats of docs, I need 10 seats of design, having that trial means you already have a location to add all of those seats to. Makes it a little bit easier for Autodesk to ensure consistency and that there's not any problems with regards to assigning the licenses to you. So the first step is actually signing up for that trial. Once that trial has been signed up for, you're going to get a few emails. So typically what's going to happen is you'll get an Autodesk BIM 360 email. It's going to come from bim360ent.no-reply@autodesk.com. So that part's important if you have a very active spam filter, just to make sure that you are allowing that email to come through. Now, what that email is going to have is a link inside of it that helps you activate your account. Once that account is active, then you can actually log in to your administration portal. Now, the location for that portal is going to be in one of 2 places. Again, if you chose to set up your hub in the UK, you're going to use the EU link down there. If you chose to set up your hub in the US, it'll be the top link. So a lot of the times you have a client and they're just picking on the US link out of habit or because of that's where most of the links online are going to, and it won't actually bring you to your EU or UK hub. But once you've actually gone through that, you've set things up, you've activated your account, you can actually check that and confirm that things are assigned to your company. So when you go into the Autodesk manage.autodesk.com site, you'll be able to see the different purchases that you have. So in this case, I just did a quick search to find all the BIM 360 services that we have on our hub. I can see that we've got these ones here. Once I have those, I can always expand them, clicking on that little triangle on the left-hand side, and that can actually bring you there as well. And if you're one of the many companies taking advantage of the extended trial that Autodesk has running right now, you'll also be able to click on the trials link, and that'll tell you the status of your actual trial. So that's the process to actually get your hub up and running. Now, once you've got the hub up and running, we're going to actually hop into that service and actually start setting it up. There you go. So right now I'm looking at my account administration portal. So I'm looking at the different projects that I can have on here and all the other content. Now, first thing I want to do when I get in here for the first time though, is I'm going to go over to my settings tab. Now, this is where I can see all the account admins. I'm not going to be able to add them from here, but what I want to do is actually come over and make sure that my hub is named correctly. Should there be an ink on the end of this? Do I want to have the, if I have an acronym or initials, do I want to spell that out? So this is where I can actually make sure that my account is representing my company correctly. So I can edit that. I can modify what my logo or image is. And the nice thing here is none of this is actually going to make any problems or change anything down the line. This is what I call the company. But there's a GUID up here and also down here that really identifies the hub. So me changing the name is not going to break links to projects or anything if I have to edit that later on. So I can come through here and personalize the hub to make sure it's named appropriately for my company and has the correct logo. One of the other things I can do is come and set up my business units. Business units is something that doesn't affect everything inside of BIM 360. It does allow you to assign a project that you create to specific business units. This is beneficial if you're taking advantage of some of the tools from BIM 360 Build. It's also beneficial if you're going to be starting to connect BIM 360 data to other tools or download them to tools like Power BI. That way I can organize and sort based on how I've done this. And the units that you create here can be whatever you want. Could they be, they could be based on location. Do I want them in the Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, US, different cities or regions? Do I want them to be based on the kind of projects? So this is the residential business unit, commercial, retail. So you can set this up however you feel you need to organize your projects for better data. So I can go through there and start tweaking things to make sure that my site is organized the way that I need. And then I can go to my members tab. This is where I can start adding people to my hub. Now, the nice thing is when you go to the add pull down, one of the options that you have is the import members by spreadsheet. What this is actually going to do is it will give you an Excel file that you can actually download. And it gives you a nice starting point. So from here, I can easily fill this out and it'll create all the users. And if I put in the correct company for those users, it'll also create that company. So this you can download from BIM 360, fill it out as you need. And then once you're ready, come over here and say import members and just select that file. And this is where you can download it from. Now, key thing here is, let's say that you own 10 seats, but you know you're gonna be moving those around. I can import 1,000 people here and it will not take any of my licenses. The only time a license is actually utilized is when you invite someone into a project and you assign them to a service. So this is really just, a directory, for all of us that want to date ourselves. Think of this as your Rolodex, but it's not actually doing anything with those users until you put them in a project. So I can come through here and add all the people into the overall hub. It is a little bit different in terms of what happens when you add someone to the member directory versus adding them directly into a project. The main difference is that when you're adding them directly to the directory here, you have the ability to start putting in what their default company is and their default role. So when you add someone to a project, it's going to leave those two empty in terms of the overall profile. You're just setting them up for that specific project. That'll make a little bit more sense in the next session when we cover projects. Now, similar to what I just mentioned, where people don't take licenses until you add them to the project, that allows me to invite account admins, and I can have as many as I feel I need. Unless that account admin is actually working in the project, they won't take a seat. But this is where I would go to invite the account admins or the executives if I'm using BIM 360 Build. And then from here, if I need to, I can always grab people and enable or disable them. So if I need to turn someone access to my site off, I can do that very quickly. And that essentially takes whatever licenses that they were using and puts it back in my pool. So if I only have a certain number of seats and I have to move them around a little bit, this is one of the easier ways to do that. So got my members tab where I can actually add people, manage my use cases, and track my licenses. One of the aspects of this site, though, that a lot of people tend to miss is that this is active, meaning that I can sort by clicking on the headers. I can also filter by clicking over here. So I can see everybody who's listed as pending. So, maybe they haven't signed in yet. How many people are currently active and are using specific levels of access. So show me all of the account admins that are currently active. So I can go through here and really get a better understanding of what's going on. And if this isn't enough information, I can also come over here and export all members. This allows me to take this whole list, take it to a spreadsheet, and then again, I can put it in Excel or something like Power BI, and I can really interrogate it and get an understanding of who's in my site, what services they're using, what projects they have access to. So it's a useful tool. Same thing under companies. I can see the companies, the projects that company might be involved in, and how many members are in that company. But once I've got this started to be organized, I also want to make sure that I understand when I add people to a project, what are they going to be doing? So one of the tools here is called roles. You can think of roles as how am I going to organize the people in my project? So when we get into managing your project, one of the big things that we'll touch on is permissions. Permissions can be organized either as an individual. I'm saying that Peter can go here. It can be based as the company. So anybody who works for Microdesk has the ability to edit these files. Or I can do it by the role. So in this case, anybody who's an architect can go to this folder, but not that folder. This tab here allows me to take the roles that currently exist and say that, you know what, we're never going to use that one, or create brand new ones. So this is how I can organize the users in a project. So I can tweak this to actually fit the workflows that I need. Things on the right-hand side are really just the starting point. So if I assign someone in a project the role of contract manager, this is going to set them up as an admin. If I feel, well, the contract admin manager really shouldn't be an admin on a project, I can take that away. But this is more just the starting point. I can change that after the fact. Again, if anybody does have any questions, feel free to drop them into the questions window or the chat window. I'm keeping an eye on both. So you can run through and organize your roles this way. This is something that will make life a lot easier down the line once you actually start working in your projects. Now, with your company set up, your roles organized, and everything else dialed in, you also have an analytics tab here. This is where you're going to get a base overview of your hub status. So I can come through here and see where I am with regards to my licensing. I can get an idea of how many companies I've created, how many projects I've got, and how they are organized. I can also see how many members I have based on my different services. One of the key things with this is that even though I mentioned before how the licensing works, how people are able to come and bring their own license, realize that this is not showing me my use case, my usage of licenses. This is just telling me how many people are using that service on my hub. How many are using their seats versus my seats right now. So a lot of people tend to see this and it's over the number of seats they have and they get worried. Main thing to realize is that this is just telling you how many are logging in, how many have access. It's not saying that you've gone over your license count, maybe you have, but it's saying that you're using this many seats. And that might be based off of your seats and the other people's seats together. Okay. Perfect. No questions just yet. Gotcha. So you've got the ability to set up your members, your companies. You can check your analytics to see where things are. And you also have the ability to create all your projects. So next session is where we're really going to get in depth with this. Now I'm going to hop back to my settings for a second. When you are working as an account admin, so I've been working on the hub or the overall account so far, anything that happens here at the account level is tracked. So I can easily come in here, and when I was clicking on my roles before, you can see that at that point in time, it says I was looking at that. I updated the default access. So all that account level work is actually tracked. So if anything does happen or go wrong, it's very easy to run down and actually see what happened, when, and who did it. And if me as an account admin realize that, you know what, we're using BIM 360, but we also work with 2 or 3 other companies, or we use different tools, that's where I can start taking advantage of different plugins. So if I have a development team on staff, one of the things that I can do is create custom integrations. So I can actually write code using Forge, and I can add those in. So some of the tools that we have are actually our own BIMRX series of tools and our bulk loader tool. Now, if I'm working with other tools and I don't want to build my own, Autodesk does have a lot of companies that are actually developing their own content for this. So if you're working with Bluebeam, There's a plugin for Bluebeam to connect to BIM 360. If I'm working with Holo Builder, same thing. There's a lot of different tools. In fact, when you actually look at the different tools that are out there, they cover a wide assortment of information. So if I'm trying to actually see, okay, well, I want to do things for cost management. You got CMIC, you got Rumbix. If I'm looking for scheduling tools or layout for scanning, construction management, there's a large amount there. Same thing for document management. If I like BIM 360, but I also want to have all my content automatically upload or synchronize to other services, there's tools for this. And there's a lot of other ones that are in the mix and are being worked on by different companies. So BIM 360 is not a siloed approach. You've got the different services that do different things, but if you need to connect to additional pieces, there's a lot of parts there for you. And there's going to be more, and the method of integrating with these is actually going to get easier as time goes on. Autodesk has started showing off some almost if this, then that kind of rule-based connections that should be coming out this year. Yeah. Gotcha. Cool. A couple of good questions. So one of them was expand on the services available from the EU server versus the US server. Are all tools available in the EU? Just about, yeah. The biggest difference for a while now had been the lack of the BIM 360 design tools. So those actually just went live on the EU server, I want to say probably about a month ago now. With the release of Revit 2021, that's when that went live. So I believe there's one or two smaller features that aren't parity between the two, but overall, all of the major components, BIM 360 design, build, that is all available on the EU as well as the US server. And the main difference between those two is really where is your content stored or fully located. You can work in London and work off of a project that's based in the US and vice versa. So it's not, I can't access my content unless I'm in this region. It's really where do I want the content located? Another question, can deleted roles be retrieved from an archive or will you have to recreate them again? If you actually delete the role, you can always go to that history that I showed, all the admin functions, and see which ones were deleted. But there's no undelete in terms of a role. The question here for the extended trial for the BIM 360. Yes, that actually has been confirmed as of, I believe, the end of the day yesterday. So the extended trial that Autodesk put out for many tools, BIM 360 being one of them and one of the primary ones. What normally happens is when you sign up for the trial for that, you get 30 days. With everything that's going on right now with COVID-19, Autodesk set up an extended trial to make sure that everybody who is impacted by this is able to maintain the function and keep working as easily as possible. So they had said that that would go from when it was enacted at the beginning of April all the way through the end of May. They have since said that that will now continue through June. Yep. Perfect. Now, a couple of things here. The Microdesk workflow series that we're talking about for BIM 360, and today's one on the 7th of May, we're doing BIM 360 setup. We're doing this basically every 2 weeks, same day of the week, same time, all the way through. We're going to be touching on each of the different aspects. We have the project setup is going to be next, where we're going to actually be going over, okay, now that you've got the hub set up, let's create the project. And there's a lot of little things that you can tweak inside of there, how to set up your permissions in the project, folder structure, the customization of things like issues and transmittals and review sessions. So we'll be going into a good amount of tools on that. Another question here. With the workflow series, what other kind of training can we provide? Good question. So in terms of upcoming events, we have a bunch of content. Outside of all of the components of the workflow series, we also have our virtual training program. So Microdesk has always been a mobile company in many respects. Our clients are all over the place and our team has been well set to travel around and move to that. So a lot of us are relatively familiar with working from home. Maybe not for as long as we have been though. But with that said, we've worked a lot in terms of doing remote training before in the past. And with that experience, we've been making sure that our training classes are maintaining interactivity and engagement with our students. And we've been putting together a good virtual classroom training program for our Europe clients. So this is for Revit, Navisworks Manage, BIM 360. Anybody has any questions, definitely feel free to reach out. We'll have some contact information after this, but we can do that. And there's also the question on Forge training. Yes, we do train on Forge as well. We have a development team on staff, but we can also teach people how to do it for themselves. And with regards to the BIM 360 training, when we do the webinars, they tend to be a little bit more general. We'll go through overall features and how to do certain things, some tips and tricks to avoid falling into certain pitfalls that we've identified. The training that we do is much more targeted. So we have generic outlines, but that's a starting point to work with a client to come up with what they really need. And at the end of the training, specifically for BIM 360 in this example, we've worked with the client to teach them, but we've also worked with them to set their project up. So at the end of the training, they're actively working on their project. Everything's all set up, permissions are organized, content is there, and all the stumbling blocks are removed. So that way, when we leave, they're already working on the project and being productive. And if anything comes up after that, we can easily help out. Any questions? And another upcoming event is about our ARID tool. This is a tool that our development team created for helping maintain and develop asset registry. Perfect. Cool. So if anybody does have any questions, you want to find out a little bit more, definitely feel free to reach out to us. We appreciate all your time, and any questions do come up, we'll be glad to help out and answer as best as we can. So thank you very much for everybody for your time. Definitely appreciate it. Have a great rest of the day. Cheers, everybody.